Hello, YouTube. This is Dr. Rachel Langley of Pine Ridge Family Medicine in Colorado Springs. I've been feeling bad lately. I do not prescribe antibiotics that often, and I feel like I've really upset some patients with that. So just in case any of those patients are watching, I'm sorry, but I'd like to explain a little bit more about why I don't prescribe antibiotics very often. So if you're interested in some of the ways I try to tell the difference between a viral and a bacterial infection, I have another video. I think I'll be able to put it right there if you can click on that, and that'll explain a little bit more about some of the signs and indications I look for to try to determine whether antibiotics would be good for you or not. Because viruses and bacteria are so different. Viruses are so much tinier, and there's even a debate as to whether viruses are truly living organisms. Whereas bacteria are much bigger. They're little cells, all little animals, all in and of themselves. And they can be treated with antibiotics. There's ways that we can break down their cell membrane or attack different essential parts of their little cellular body that kills them. That just doesn't work for viruses. So, okay, given that, all right, you don't want to give me antibiotics because you think it's viral, but is there really a downside to giving antibiotics for a viral infection? Yes, there's some big downsides, and that's what I want to talk about today. So even if I do think that you have a bacterial infection and I put you in antibiotics, I typically warn you that you're probably going to get diarrhea, because not only do antibiotics kill the bad bacteria that are making you sick, they kill the good bacteria that's supposed to be living in your body. For example, along your intestines, there's tons and tons and tons of good bacteria. There's more good bacteria living in your body right now than there are your own cells. There's more cells of good bacteria than there are cells of your own body. Crazy, right? So when you kill a lot of those bacteria, it's going to just wreak havoc on your digestive system. So that's why sometimes when you go on antibiotics, people recommend going on some kind of probiotic to replace the bacteria that you just killed by accident with other good bacteria. So that's present in things like yogurt, kefir, kombucha, cultured sauerkraut, or other cultured foods. Those are a way to replace the bacteria that you were killed with the antibiotics kind of by accident, the casualties. So that's one downside of antibiotics. Whether you have a bacterial infection or a viral infection, it's going to have gastrointestinal side effects typically, diarrhea or upset stomach, things like that. So that's not worth having if you're already feeling sick from something else and it's not going to make you any better and it's going to give you diarrhea. That's no fun. So what's another reason? What's the number one medication that you hear when people say, oh, I'm allergic to this medication? What typically is that? It's usually penicillin, right? That's what I hear day in and day out. It's really common to be allergic to antibiotics. So that means when you have an allergic reaction, you're covered in hives, you're itchy, you're red, you're miserable. Do you really want to risk that on top of an infection that it probably won't help with? I certainly don't. So that's another one of the reasons that I will try to do my best to make sure that you have a bacterial infection that will improve with these antibiotics. Because I don't want you to get hives for nothing. You might have an allergic reaction. In fact, they're finding more and more that, from what I'm reading, that the hives that people get with penicillin isn't a true allergic reaction that might lead to anaphylaxis, where you have to treat it with an EpiPen and might be life-threatening. It might actually be just a side effect of penicillins that happens in so many people. And so that you as an adult could possibly get penicillin as a treatment and still get those hives but never progress to an anaphylactic reaction. So not a true allergy? Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I'm not going to put you on penicillin if you have an allergic reaction if I have any other choice. But just an interesting thing to throw out there. Still no fun to get hives, especially if it's just a known side effect of the medication. And I don't like risking that, especially if it's a real allergic reaction with a possibility of anaphylaxis. Oh man, that's life-threatening. That could shut off your airway. So I'm careful with antibiotics for that reason too. The last reason you may have heard of on the news, it's a pretty big deal, the concern about antibiotic resistance. So what does that mean and what does it have to do with you, with your cold? Well, the more you expose bacteria, even good bacteria, even bacteria that just happens to be there but isn't causing any trouble, if you expose that bacteria to antibiotics, they're more likely to suck in little pieces of that medicine and incorporate that into their genome and figure out how it works so that they can be resistant to it, so that it doesn't touch them. So instead of killing them or making them weaker, it doesn't do a thing. So that's antibiotic resistance. And the concern is that the more you expose more bacteria to that, whether it's because you actually have a viral infection and you go on antibiotics, or because you did have a bacterial infection and you needed those antibiotics, there's still going to be some bacteria that get exposed to that medicine and it doesn't kill them. And they're more likely to become resistant to that. And then they could go on and start even worse infections, whether it's in you or someone else that's resistant to that bacteria, to that medicine, sorry. So that's a big concern, that we're going to slowly run out of antibiotics that treat bad bugs, that there's going to be bacteria more and more often that we don't have anything to kill. I mean, think back to the days not that long ago where we didn't have antibiotics at all, and people died of pneumonia and urinary tract infections, kidney infections, right and left. I mean, it was pretty common. Before we had antibiotics, it was a different world of practicing medicine. And there's people who are concerned that we're headed back to that same world when all of the bacteria become resistant to antibiotics. And so there won't be much to treat them with. We'll be back to, hopefully we won't be bleeding people to try to treat their infections or things like that. We'll continue the scientific method and find other ways to treat it, but it probably won't be nearly as effective as the antibiotics that we have currently against the bacteria we have currently. So if there's a chance that you're going to get better without antibiotics, I'm really likely to not put you on antibiotics. But the fact that you've had this kind of cold before and gotten some benefit from your antibiotics, it makes sense, especially with azithromycin or a Z-Pak. It's a really popular antibiotic. It's a nice short duration of medicine. You only have to take it once a day. It's a cool medicine. But it also has a lot of anti-inflammatory effect. I mean, in addition to killing the bacteria, it just decreases the inflammation in your body, similar to ibuprofen or acetaminophen. So those are Advil or Tylenol, common names for them, that decrease inflammation. They're anti-inflammatories, and that's what I recommend a lot of times as an alternative to a Z-Pak or other antibiotics. It can make you feel a lot better, whether it's a bacterial infection or a viral infection. I'm going to give you this same advice, that you should go on scheduled ibuprofen and scheduled Tylenol. It helps take away the achiness, some of the fatigue, any fevers that you might be having. It just makes you feel so much better. It even helps a lot with a sore throat, which doesn't always come to mind. But it does, it works. So I recommend, if you're feeling that crummy that you're considering going in on trying to get some antibiotics to see if that would make you feel better, I recommend first you go on 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. So that's quite a few of those little pills. That's 4 over-the-counters. But if you're taking it for short duration, just as long as you have this illness and you're trying to eat something to coat your stomach and make it a little less irritating on your stomach, it's a pretty good way to go. It can be, if you already have kidney issues, that's something to talk about with your doctor, because ibuprofen does put a workload on your kidneys. So if they're having trouble for other reasons, then it might be wise to avoid them. But for the most part, ibuprofen, 800 milligrams every 8 hours throughout the day. Set an alarm clock, set a timer on your phone, make a note on the dry erase board of when you last took your medicine so you can stay on top of it. And then, here's the clincher. Then you also take Tylenol or acetaminophen, because it's a different family of medications, so it's okay to combine these two. You take the Tylenol and you time it so that those times when the ibuprofen is starting to wear off at the end of that 8 hours, you're on Tylenol instead. And that's also a potent anti-inflammatory, fever reducer, awesome stuff. And the dosage of that kind of depends on what you've got at home. I just follow the instructions on the bottle. But you want to stay definitely less than 4 grams of Tylenol a day. Whew, that's a big number. How do you do that with milligrams? Okay, if you have the regular strength Tylenol, which is the 325 milligram strength, you can take 12 of those a day. That's a lot. You could take it every 2 hours, or you could take 2 of them every 4 hours and kind of plan that with the ibuprofen. That's my favorite thing to recommend, is taking it kind of 2 hours before the ibuprofen is about to wear off, and it'll last you about the next 4 hours. Or if you've got the extra strength on hand, that's the 500 milligrams of acetaminophen or Tylenol, you can take 8 of those in a day. So you could take 2 of those, and so it'd be 1,000 milligrams, and you could take, ooh, that's higher level math at the moment. You could take those every 6 hours, and that would work out well also with the ibuprofen. So stagger ibuprofen, Tylenol, and always stay covered by one or the other, or sometimes even both, while you're feeling so crummy. And then watch my other video on bacterial versus viral infections, or if you're just feeling crummy, come in and talk with us, and we'll see what else we can do for you to try to make you feel better. It's a bad cold and flu season right now. Keep washing your hands. Remember, just running them under the water doesn't count as washing your hands. We have to wash them for a full 30 seconds, scrubbing every way that you can think of. Get the backs of your hands and all around like that. Wash your hands, drink plenty of fluids, get as much rest as you can, stay away from the stress as much as you can. And I hope you stay healthy and happy this holiday season and all throughout this winter. And keep up the good work. Call us if you need an appointment, if you're one of our patients, or if you want to become one of our patients. Oh, and while you're here, if you could subscribe to us, that'll keep you updated as to when we have a new video, and also get our numbers up to help us spread the word about the awesomeness that is direct primary care. Thanks for watching.